Devil's advocates whisper in the hall, where justice wears a mask and truth begins to fall. Every thread they pull, every lie they weave, in the courtroom's dance, who's left to believe? Oh, the devil's in the details, hiding in plain sight, innocent until the gavel steals the light. True crime echoes through the hollow night, fighting injustice with no end. The devil's in the details, hiding in plain sight, innocent until the gavel steals the light. True crime echoes through the hollow night, fighting injustice with no end in sight. A photograph fades where the truth once stood. Blurred lines between the bad and the good. The scales they tilt with every silver tongue, while the broken cry for a song unsung. Black robes sway like shadows on the wall. One wrong word and the mighty fall. Who's a sinner? Who's a saint? The jury's out, but the verdict's faint. Oh, the devil's in the details, hiding in plain sight, innocent until the gavel steals the light. True crime echoes through the hollow night, fighting injustice with no end. The devil's in the details, hiding in plain sight, innocent until the gavel steals the light. True crime echoes through the hollow night, fighting injustice with no end in sight.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to another Crimes After Dark episode. It's a special treat tonight. Holy crap, I felt bad. I have my special guest backstage, and I realized she has never seen my intro and a sizzle reel. And I'm like, is she thinking right now, oh my God, what the hell did I just get into? I got to watch this sizzle reel carefully and make sure I'm not on some kind of crazy show now that haven't been here in a while. So we have backstage Ally Benevento. Some of you, hopefully a lot of you have seen her on the show before, although it's been a while since we'd have been able to catch up. So I'm super, super excited to not only have Ally on the show, but to have her interact with my panelist because of her late night back there, and she just literally got off TV herself on CourtTV, I believe. So she's kind of in that mode to kind of finish her night and get on to other things that she has to do before going to bed. So I want to get her up as quickly as possible. I'm going to really quickly just get the panelists on stage one at a time. I'll bring up Ally last, and then we'll get right into it. We're more than likely going to spend some time tonight talking to Ally about Luigi Mangion. When I first met Ally, it was actually because of the Luigi Mangion case. We kind of connected. She was on TikTok and I was on TikTok, and we were watching each other's stuff. And so that's kind of how we started our friendship, if you will. During the Kohberger case, Ally and I also talked about Brian Kohberger's case. I had the pleasure of having that cool moment in my life where I got to talk to an attorney while I'm in the courtroom for Brian Kohberger, and she's texting me saying, oh my God, did they just say that in the courtroom? Very cool moment for me. It was surreal to have that moment. So Ally's been amazing ever since, and we've maintained a friendship. It's just our schedules have gotten so busy. It's like almost hard to get the two of us together, but we're doing it again tonight. And so it's a special treat. Really quickly, I'm just going to bring up my guests in the order that they're backstage. We've got 1-1. How's the microphone? Is it working?
Good evening. Hello, denizens. Hi, boss man. Streaming 24 hours a day. It's great stuff.
I have been streaming a F ton because we got like 50 gigabytes of not discovery, that's the wrong word, 50 gigabytes of public records release from Pullman Police Department about the Brent Kopacka shooting. And so we've been going through that, and I've been streaming hour after hour and talking about what I see in there and what happened and what I thought they did right and what they did wrong and the shooting of Brent Kopacka. And so that's been super interesting. So lots of stuff going on. And I'm spending a lot of time on TV, or YouTube. It's not really TV, but not real TV. But anyways, it's still like I'm on all the time. So it's good to see you. For those who don't know, what's up?
I'll jump in quick. I will do my. I know we usually make this elongated a bit, but here we go. Is it good to be alive in the den on a Thursday night? They didn't just tell you a story, they trained you to believe it. A name, a headline, a face. Repeat it long enough, and doubt becomes betrayal. Because believing is easier than thinking. You were shown what they wanted you to see, you were told what mattered, and everything else was labeled irrelevant, or worse, conspiracy. But truth doesn't need consensus, and justice doesn't survive comfort. Every case has a moment, the moment when questions stop being welcome. That's the moment this show begins. Because once a conclusion is chosen, evidence becomes decoration. Contradictions are ignored. Timelines bend. Silence is explained away. And anyone who asks why becomes the problem. This isn't about sympathy. This isn't about innocence. This isn't about guilt. This is about certainty and how dangerous it becomes when no one is allowed to challenge it. What if the case only works because certain questions were never asked? What if the truth wasn't hidden, but simply buried beneath confidence? What if the loudest voices weren't the smartest ones? We are not here to give answers. We are here to destroy assumptions, to pull at the thread everyone else agreed not to touch, to stand where the crowd refuses to stand, on the wrong side of certainty. Because history doesn't remember who was confident, it remembers who was right. Welcome to Devil's Advocate, where comfort is irrelevant and certainty is on trial. And with that, live from New York, it's Thursday night.
And now, so our resident NYPD, not representing NYPD. We say this all the time. Please remember that he does not represent NYPD. He just happens to be NYPD. So his opinions are those of his own. However, he lends his law enforcement background to our show, and it's amazing. And he gets to make me jealous every single time he ends with live from New York. It's freaking, you're killing me. I need to put my reel together where I'm standing at time. I went and got Times Square footage. I got to do it. I could do live from New York. It's my ass. Yeah. But anyways, you get to do that instead. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Let's get the rest of our panelists up very, very quickly. We got Dago from I was going to say True Crime Cafe, but I almost said True Crime Reactions. Like I just conflated you with Jules. Fucking sorry about that. Dago, you're muted, so make sure you unmute yourself. Say hi to everybody. Let us know what's going on today in your world.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining us here tonight. It's wonderful to be back, as always. It is great to see you all here, all the meatballs and the blue crew in the house, as well as the denizens. I always mess it up. Anyway, you guys know who you are. It's wonderful to be here with you all tonight. My opinion is we're all one big family now, so it's great to see you all. Thank you all for joining us. And Lee, thank you for having me again.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always excited to have our two channels merged together like this. It's a great symbiotic relationship. We have so many things in common. So without further ado, let's keep moving the ball along so we can get our special guest on stage, Robin, our co-producer of the show. How are you doing tonight, Robin?
I'm doing well, thank you. Great to be here with you all, and welcome into all the denizens, all the blue crew, the meatballs over there in the sauce on Dago's channel, and of course, so excited to have Alli with us. Yes. So just gonna be a great night. So,
and last but not least, before Alli, JJ or Joe from State of the Deep joined us after we all said hi backstage to Alli, so he doesn't get to get the pre-show kind of thing. But Joe, how you doing tonight? Welcome to the show.
Good evening, everybody. DA11, Robin, Dago, the Den.
Good to see you, brother.
The meatballs, the blue crew. Is that right?
Yeah,
everybody.
We got so many nicknames in our crew and our community has tons of nicknames. I can't even keep track of all the nicknames we have.
We're all.
But anyways, So JJ has a Substack, stateofthedeep.substack.com. He's going to be launching a YouTube channel soon. So Dago's a YouTuber. I'm a YouTuber. Joe's going to be a YouTuber. He's too busy with fighting crime to be able to have his own show. So he's just happy being on this show. And now we're going to bring up Ally Benevento, who some of you have seen before. She's having to share such a small part of her screen. Ally, how you doing tonight? It's good to see you.
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm feeling a little left out. I feel like somebody's going to have to come up with a really punny nickname for me, at least by the end of the show. And we'll save it for next
Yeah,
time.
we need to make you an avatar. I don't know if you saw some of those avatars, but somebody made us like cartoon avatars of all of our panelists. We can make a cartoon avatar of you or something. I don't know.
I'll take
it. It's great to have you on. I know a lot of our panelists, most of them have not spoken to you one-on-one. And I wanted to, this is going to be super hard for me because I talk for a living, but I'm going to try to speak less and let you have more talking time as well. We all do. We all talk for a living. So getting like 6 people on screen together that talk for a living is probably a bad idea. But what I would like to do is I would like to kind of let the panelists interact with you a little bit more while you're here. I know that at some point you're going to have to call Matei and go to bed or whatever, because I know you're an East Coaster and stuff like that. So I'm going to let you kind of decide when you want to bow out or when you need to bow out. But in the meantime, I know that Luigi Mangion is a topic you and I were talking about just recently, because tomorrow, I think Margaret Garnett is hearing oral arguments, about 30 minutes from both the prosecution and the defense, on what I think is, she's already kind of decided what she's going to do, but she's giving them a last minute to talk for 30 minutes, because she even said, look, your written arguments were really well written. So it's just a 30-minute extra piece. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what that oral argument, if I'm even remotely right, that she kind of probably already knows how she's going to rule, what's the 30-minute oral argument going to do to solidify her thing? How long is it going to take for her to make a decision? Do you want to kind of walk us through what is on the table and what she's going to rule and when you think it's going to happen?
Sure. So a lot of this is jurisdiction specific. So I will say, I am a native New Yorker, but I don't practice law in New York, so I can't necessarily speak to what their particular patterns are in the district there, Southern District of New York. But I will say, yes, most judges have their minds made up before they go into the hearing. They've had an opportunity to review tons and tons and tons of written material. And in this case, Judge Garnett, like you said, she kind of made a funny comment. She was like, it was what did she say? She was like, it was voluminous and something. I mean, it was a dig, also kind of like wrapped in a compliment. She's like, I've heard enough. You all have talked enough. You've written enough. I know what I'm going to do. Oral arguments. I will say, I think some judges, if they are feeling on the fence about something, or in particular, if they want to ask questions of the lawyers, they will use oral arguments as an opportunity to do that. Appellate court panels function in this way almost exclusively, where it will be a conversational or a question and answer format. I'll be really curious to see how the judge handles it, but I would imagine that maybe she feels some hesitation, or she has some lingering questions that she wants the parties to answer. Because remember, she limited that oral argument to just specific issues. She said, I've got enough. I know what I'm doing on the others. So I think she will interact with them a good bit, or at least I hope she will.
And it seems to me, for those who aren't familiar, I mean, a lot of our channel really is heavy into Idaho 4, so they're a little bit less into Luigi. But from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, out of the 4 or 5 counts I think that Luigi Mangion is facing, counts 3 and 4 are the ones that are really on the table here, because she's already decided on counts 1 and 2, and so she just needs to hear oral arguments on 3 and 4. If I understand, 3 and 4 are the big ones, because they're the 2 that include the notice of intent to basically execute Luigi Mangion, to put him to death, right? And so one option on the table is counts 3 and 4 stand, but you need to take off the notice of intent, because you screwed that up, and it's not fair to try to put him to death at this point because he's been prejudiced in the public's eye, right? That's one. One is striking. One will strike the entire 3 and 4 altogether. They're no good. I didn't think that was a possibility, but I'd like to hear your opinion. Like, you don't think that Karen Agnifilo, for example, has made a good argument that the death penalty has already been kind of off the table because of the way they handled it?
Oh, I think she's made a great argument. Let's be clear about that. Karen Agnifilo's #1 fangirl is sitting right here. Okay. I think she's done a fantastic job. She's an amazing lawyer. there is a very good basis for the arguments that she's making. And I don't want to bore your audience to death. God, I'll put everybody to sleep. I'll put myself to sleep arguing about the modified categorical approach and whether they qualify as predicate crimes of violence. That's really what this all hangs on, but nobody wants to hear about that, right? So
Right.
there are circuit splits throughout the country on this issue. I am really kind of dying to hear what the judge's questions are. I want to know where her head is. But to answer your question, do I think that the death penalty is going to be taken off the table? No, I don't. And I've thought that from the very beginning. That's not in any way an indictment of Karen, the strength of Karen's arguments or the strength of the arguments generally. That's because I think that there are other things at play. I really do, and I have believed from the beginning that this administration, this Department of Justice chose Luigi as their poster boy for pushing their death agenda. They're going to cling to that for dear life. I just don't see it going away. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure to keep those, to preserve those. But I do think that Karen has made good arguments. She's not throwing a Hail Mary here. There is a basis for them. It's just, it takes a lot of huevos for a judge to throw something like that out when the eyes of the world are watching. I don't have a lot of faith it's going to happen.
Well, I'm gonna give a space for my audience, my panel to talk to you, but I want to say you're scaring me a little bit, because I thought to myself, man, Karen made a great argument why they already effed up the death penalty thing, that they've really, I mean, there's a million things that I don't want to go over all the arguments, but I thought she made a masterful explanation of why that's not even an option anymore. And I thought to myself, this judge, if they do the right thing, is gonna say, you fucked up the death penalty part. That part you can go forward with 3 and 4, right. Count 3 and 4. But so I'm thinking, oh no, you're telling me like that's not going to happen. They're not going to take it off. But remember, Judge Caro shocked both of us when he said, yep, you can't call this an act of terrorism. You can't use terrorism. That was inappropriate. And and you even said, like, I'm glad that he had the balls to say that, because I mean, I don't know if you said that exact word, but that was the basic gist.
Nope. I actually remember, because people were hating on me for that, saying it wasn't very ladylike. So I said it in Spanish this time.
That's all good. On this show, you can say whatever you want. I'm going to turn it over to one a little bit, because he's dying to ask you some questions. I think we should get back before we finish on Luigi. We should get back to that question about whether or not death penalty could be removed and how it might impact the state trial if they do it. But I know one's dying to ask you about the arrest of Luigi Mangion. And before I let him turn him loose, I want to say this. I was keying on Karen Agnifilo saying, normally those kind of Frank's hearings, those little admissibility hearings take a half a day, and it took 3 weeks, of which the defense brought nobody to the stand. They let the prosecution bring 30 people to the stand for 3 weeks. And I think the biggest thing Karen ever said was, you do know what Miranda rights are, right? And then she rested her side, and that was it. I'm like, for 3 weeks, all we heard was, you know what Miranda rights are? So I want to have one go ahead and ask you some questions about the arrest, and maybe we'll get into that whole 3 weeks of discovery, whether or not you think what's going to happen with that. But go ahead, one, ask your questions.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good.
So we covered maybe a few weeks ago, Robin and myself, we did a whole show basically covering the 911 call, listening to it, and then we watched the body camera footage of the officers responding on scene. So what I tried to do, we tried to basically like give to the audience, people in the chat, like what was going through my mind, and from the info that I got from the 911, if the operator was giving me the job, how I would be responding. And so we did all that, and we looked at the levels of stops in Pennsylvania, which they have 3 levels. Obviously I work in New York. Here we have 4. But a Terry stop is a Terry stop. We went through the whole definition, and we explained it all to the chat. So those of you who are new, who just real quick, a Terry stop is basically a stop, question, and possible frisk that enables the police, law enforcement, to, if they have reason to believe that someone has committed, is in the process, or is about to commit a penal law misdemeanor or felony, it allows them to forcibly stop someone there. You're not free to leave, but you're not under arrest. It's basically, a brief investigation. So my question to you is, we did a whole review of the body camera footage and the 911 call. So a lot of people were making, there's a lot of people passionate about this case, and they were bringing, to the forefront that in the 911 call, this manager of McDonald's says that, there's 5 people I work with said they think that this guy matches the description of maybe the shooter in New York, and he's suspicious. So we went through all that, and basically what I got, I felt that from that 911 call, because you do have an identifiable valid person. So it's not anonymous. They had a very specific description of who this so-called person is that's suspicious. I felt the info that was given, so the officers responding, it's basically putting them at a Terry stop. Obviously, the results of what went on, what Luigi was doing was not suspicious at all. He actually had bought food, and I believe he was there about a half hour, and he's sitting in the corner. But what I felt from watching the whole body camera footage, I felt that they did have reason to stop him based on the 911 call, but I didn't feel that they ever got to the next level. They were at a Terry stop. I didn't feel, so they think that this person might match the description, but there's no, who is it that they're going to have that's identifying, Luigi, that he matches this. It's not like they didn't have a wanted poster where Luigi is, they know that this is, Jack Smith, that they know who Jack Smith is, and look, this is Jack Smith. They had no idea who he is. So he may somewhat look like what they thought was the person in the video, but I felt they never got to the step of getting from a Terry stop to probable cause. And then all the stuff that proceeded after that is a whole bunch of hogwash. Like you can't go through his bag saying you find a gun and all this stuff when you didn't have a valid, it's not a valid arrest to begin with. So they're basically using what what we call search incidental to lawful arrest, but they never got to a lawful arrest. So I feel that, I'm sure, I know they're not going to throw, like you said, the case is so big and everything. I'm sure it's not going to get thrown out, but I feel like the whole arrest from the start isn't even valid. They never got to a valid arrest.
So let's
how you felt about it.
Yeah, let's Alli talk about how she feels, because we've talked about it, Alli and I, a long time ago, about that arrest and the arguments that Thomas Dickey made and Karen Agnifilo made that said, look, that wasn't a legal arrest. Do you want to explain your position on whether or not they reached to the point that they had a lawful right to search his backpack and all those things that happened afterwards?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, they did not have a right to go through his backpack at that point in time. I think where things get a little, so first of all, I want to say that I agree that they had a right, that the phone call, first of all, it was really interesting to me hearing that 911 call is much different than I imagined it would be in my head. I mean, that you could hear the McDonald's manager was almost kind of laughing, like she didn't even believe what she was saying. Right. She's like, we've got some people here who think that we've got a bushy eyebrow guy who looks like he might be the New York shooter. Like, even the way that the call happened was funny. She didn't seem like she was taking it seriously, but I think she felt like she had to do something. So I agree. Law enforcement at least had a reason, it wasn't just like, we're harassing people on the side. They had somebody call and say, we've got this guy here. He looks like he could be the shooter. Okay, they approach him and they talk to him. There was a point at which one of them said, hey, have you been to New York lately? And then, of course, there was the Mark Rosario comment, but that was of their own they manufactured that. He, like you
Right.
said, he was sitting there and he was eating. So I agree that they never got to the point where they had probable cause to believe anything, but they took it upon themselves to go through his stuff, to keep him, kind of cornered in there on that side of the restaurant, and then started asking him questions. um I have a problem with the way that they handled the evidence on the scene, but what I think is going to be meaning the backpack, and I'm trying not to get too far ahead of myself, but I think what's going to be problematic for Luigi is the fact, well, one, they've already conceded that they're not going to try to keep out those statements about giving the false name, is that I think that the response is going to be, well, we were just talking to him, we were being friendly, and he's the one that kind of started getting chatty with us. He didn't immediately say, I'm not talking to you, or refuse to answer questions. I think we would be in a different situation. Now, I'm not blaming Luigi for that, but I do think that that's where things start to get a little murkier, is once he started voluntarily engaging with them, because of course, no offense to police officers, but of course they're gonna latch onto that, and they're gonna keep him talking, right? And they
Right.
There was
did.
there was a moment where one of the officers asked Luigi, "What's the matter? Do you not want to talk to us?" And he said he didn't want to talk to them, and yet they
Yeah.
continued to ask him questions after that.
Yeah.
That kind of bothered me too, because like he literally told them, "I don't want to talk to you," and they
Yeah.
kept asking him questions. So one could argue,
Yeah.
he was kind of feeling and here's the big argument, right? You can argue until they told him that he had the right to remain silent. He felt he had to answer their questions. He literally tells them, "I don't want to
100%.
talk
He's
to you."
surrounded by cops. You couldn't
Right.
leave. His back's up against the wall.
Right. So it comes down to the Miranda issue. Like literally at the moment that Luigi is asked, there was an officer, we talked about this before, an officer that says, "You guys have read him his Miranda rights, right?" And told him that he's under investigation. And they said no. And then he's like,
shit,
"Well,
let's
God's
do
sake,
that."
fucking
Yeah.
somebody do it." Right. So then they
Yeah.
tell him he's under he's being investigated, but they still didn't read his Miranda rights right away. But the point being is that he shut up. He shut up after they read his Miranda rights. So one could make the argument, everything prior to that point, he didn't know he had the right. You could argue. In America, you're thinking everybody knows you have the right.
Karen
But
did.
you literally can argue he didn't know he had the right until they told him you have the right to remain silent.
Yeah.
So what do you think is going to happen with the discovery? I mean, I noticed my take was, and this is what I was going to ask you as a lawyer. I wanted to get your opinion on this, on what you think. I don't know how it works, but it seemed to me the prosecution is anticipating the judge could rule that it was that was an illegal arrest or the illegal search or whatever, and that they may lose some of their discovery or some of their evidence, right? And so it seemed to me that they were getting around that by bringing other people in to say, well, while Luigi was in detention, he voluntarily admitted he had a gun in his possession, and he had voluntarily admitted that he had problems with the healthcare system, and so they brought all these people on to basically say, if you toss the items, you can't toss the fact that he opened his mouth and told everybody he had a gun or whatever. So we'll do the next best thing. We'll just bring in people to say, well, he admitted he had a gun there. And do you think there's any chance they're going to toss the actual physical evidence, such as the gun and the notebook that they keep calling a manifesto, or is that probably going to stand? And if they do toss it, will they just rely on the testimony of people saying, well, he talked about doing it afterwards? I mean, how's that going to play out?
There's a possibility. Sure, there's a possibility. Do I think there's a probability? No. I think fat chance is my answer to that.
Yeah, about them tossing this stuff. You think it's just gonna stand? And do you think that's because, I need to ask, like, do you think it's because you're cynical about them playing by the right rules because they've got I don't know, I don't want to put you in a bad place, but is it politicized to the point where they're gonna make him the poster child for this thing, and they're just gonna or do you think they have a legal grounding that they really, maybe it can just be ruled that it was totally illegal or whatever? Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is there any motivation to they're not going to let this go because that he needs to be made an example of, and it doesn't matter whether they did the right thing or not, he's still going to hang for it, kind of thing?
I wouldn't even say it's that. I mean, I do think that there's some element of that, but I mean, I live with this every day, and I can say that the benefit of the doubt, even though it's supposed to go to the person accused, very rarely does. Judges very rarely will refuse to admit evidence. They'll say, well, I think they will find a reason. Okay. And yes, that is me being cynical, but there's a basis for that because I see this day in and day out. I will say that the chances of it being kept out are lower than the chances of it being let in. Now, again, I hope that I'm wrong about that. I have a serious problem with the way the entire interaction at the McDonald's transpired. I do. But I've done this for 16 years, and I know how these things go. And all of that is magnified when you have a high profile case where everyone is watching, and then you add on the political pressure that this case has, and it just makes everything more difficult for the judge to do the right thing or to make the hard call. And so that's why I'm very skeptical. It's all of those things in the aggregate.
I want to give it a chance, for some of our other panelists to ask you a question or two, and it's hard for me to shut up and quit asking you all the questions that I've been holding for months to do so. I do want to add one follow-on question, which is that, do you feel, well, shit, I just lost my follow-on question, damn it. It was about their arrest, and shit, I lost it. Okay, so how about this? One of my panelists, Joe, Robin, Dago, do you have a question? Did you want to raise your hand and let me know if you've got some kind of question about the Luigi case before I formulate another question? Because I want to give you guys a chance.
You guys can feel free to go first. I have a couple of things, but feel free to jump in.
I'm just curious if you don't mind. I don't mind asking real quick. What your take on a possible outcome within this case could be, in your opinion, based on what you know and what you've seen?
It's so hard because I do not have the benefit of seeing all of the evidence. The only thing I've seen, of course, is what's been released. And of course, that's not everything. So it's tough because I wish I could be in Karen Agnifalo's mind in so many ways, and I can't. So I think that it is certainly possible that the defense may be approached in the federal case in some sort of a negotiation. I don't even have a whole lot of faith in that because I do think that there's so much pressure to keep death penalty on the table, and there's just only so much you can negotiate. A possible outcome, I see this case going to trial unless something drastic changes. I just don't see that there's going to be any incentive for them otherwise. I just don't. I think it's a trial. I don't know what that's going to look like because, again, I haven't seen the evidence, but I think this case is going to trial.
Well, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'd say that a million times. I obviously never thought it wasn't going to trial. I still have that hope and maybe it's a pipe dream. I think it's a pipe dream, right? Maybe because you're convincing me maybe this was a pipe dream. I always thought there's the possibility that they're going to get the death penalty portion taken off the table in the federal case, and that changes and opens up options in the state case. Because again, the primary complaint here is that it's unfair to Luigi Mangione to fight two cases at the same time, in which his defense in one case may affect his defense in the other case. He can't, for example, in the state case, argue extreme emotional distress, and which is basically, yeah, I did it, but here's why I did it, when that's admitting to murder in the federal case and they're going to put him to death. So if you have the death penalty, you don't even want to exercise that option of saying, yeah, I did it, but here's why I did it. So I always felt like if, it's the requirement of Karen to get the death penalty taken off because it allows them to fight the state case on a whole different level. You have thoughts on that at all? Or?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's ridiculous that this is a death penalty case in the first place. In no universe, in any state, anywhere in the history of ever, would a case like this ever be a death penalty case. Full stop, point blank, period. Okay, it's outrageous that it is, which to me makes it even more difficult. It should make it easier to get the death penalty taken off the table, but because there's been so much controversy surrounding this case, it actually ends up making it harder. But I agree with you. If she can in some way get the death penalty taken off the table, that opens up a whole bunch of possibilities. But again, there are so many questions. Lee, I think the last time we were together, going back to, well, what are they going to do? Are they going to take the whole, well, yeah, I did it because that MFer needed killing? Is that their defense, right? Like that it was justified? Or no, it wasn't me. I wasn't the guy with the big bushy eyebrows. We don't have the answers to those questions. But once death penalty comes off the table, it opens up so many possibilities to negotiate the federal case. Maybe even the state case goes away. the two jurisdictions may get together and decide, most of the time, if you've got a concurrent state and federal prosecution, if it's something the feds are salivating over, they're going to take it and the state's going to be happy to get rid of it. Maybe something like that happens. But while that death penalty is still in play, I think there's almost zero chance of any type of negotiation, and it's a trial. But to your point, if we get what we want, which is for the death penalty to be taken off the table, I think it's a total reset for this case, and anything could happen.
Well, yeah, and exactly, I that part I 100% agree, and I made a prediction where it's like, I think, I'm holding out that Karen made a masterful argument why death penalty is a non-option at this point. They violated his constitutional rights. They prejudiced him from the biggest pulpit in the stage, where the Attorney General of the United States comes out and tells people, this guy is, if there's ever a case in which somebody needs to be murdered, it's this guy. He's a cold-blooded murderer. This guy's, that was prejudicial every day and twice on Sunday, right? So I think she made a great argument that you can't put the cat back in the box once she said those statements so I'm holding out hope still that the judge might rule that, look, you can still prosecute him on counts 3 and 4, but the death penalty is not really an option. But it sounds like you're kind of like leaning towards that they probably will just be incentive. They just need to make this guy the poster child kind of thing. I wanted to ask you a question or two about what is your thoughts on, and I can't remember, I hope I get this right. Karen's moved to not allow the body-worn camera footage of the arrest in the McDonald's, and I thought that was weird. Why would she not want the jury to see? Why does she move to suppress that footage? Because it seemed like it didn't actually look bad for Luigi Mangion, other than him giving the false name to an officer, which technically isn't even illegal in Pennsylvania. But why did she ask to have that suppressed? I don't understand.
I don't know the answer to that question, but there's got to be something about it that plays into whatever her strategy is, and of course, maybe she just doesn't want the jury to have this picture of, here's this man surrounded by cops and, oh God, what's the first thing he does? He tells a lie.
Right.
Maybe she doesn't want them to visualize that. I don't know. I don't know that I have a good answer. Sorry, Lee. I don't have a good answer to that one.
That's okay. And I have a follow-on kind of question, which is,
That's a good question, though.
I was worried about a statement. How do I say it? Word is not. They brought out in those 3 weeks a statement that Luigi Mangion made that sounds really bad for those who are out there in America who think Luigi Mangion didn't do this at all. He couldn't hurt a fly. There was a statement someone said that he made this comment when he saw the big perp walk that we've talked about, and he's like, all of this for a mass murderer? Why? So it was a statement that basically was Luigi saying, why does everybody give a shit that Brian Thompson died? The guy's a mass murderer. And so this is what it wasn't because he's not the mass murderer, but even if Luigi Mangion was the shooter, he killed one guy. But his comment, supposedly, the one that they want to tell people in America, is that he was like, all of this for a mass murderer? Who gives a shit about Brian Thompson? And that looks really bad for him on some people's mind. Like, you're basically admitting you killed the guy, and you don't understand why everybody cares about Brian Thompson because he's a piece of garbage mass murderer. Did you catch that part in that discovery part? Or?
But I think you can read Luigi's comment in a number of ways, and unless Luigi tells us what he meant by that, if he even remembers saying it at all, or if it's been plucked out of context, or it's been misconstrued, you can read that 2 different ways. He could be talking about like all of this for little old me, or all of this for Brian Thompson, whose healthcare industry kills millions of Americans. So we don't know the answer to that initial question. But yeah, I mean, a jury could hear that, interpret it however they want to, and draw a negative inference, certainly. But, there's 2 sides to every coin. There's 2 ways to interpret that statement. I think there's actually maybe even more. But
yeah, I don't know.
I don't care about that statement. I mean, people are making a huge deal about it. I mean, to me, there's an explanation, which is that it's been taken out of context or it's been misconstrued. I mean, I feel very confident that Karen can take whatever the government says it means, and she can put a question in the jury's mind that it could mean something completely different.
Yeah.
And it be reasonable, and to make that argument with a straight face, because you can do it, because it really is an ambiguous sounding, we don't know what he meant. I would love to ask Luigi that question. What did that mean? Do you even remember saying it? He could have just been, in shock.
Right. And there were several
statements. We're hanging on to every word.
Right. And there were several statements that they had from guards, for example, why he was in detention of kind of incriminating statements that they're trying to say Luigi made behind, oh, well, he told us that, he had a gun and he didn't like the health insurance industry and whatever. And it's all like secondhand from guards. I don't even know how that would stand up. And even one of the guards didn't want to be there. He told him he was irritated that he had to be there in the court testifying in the first place. So I'm not sure how that's all going to, I wanted to point out one more crazy point. If Joe, you had questions. Wait a minute, Joe, you had some questions.
I had two things. One is sort of an opinion, and the other is sort of a question. But it's two things. First thing, please, Allie, don't feel compelled to answer. I wouldn't expect you to, but I have to be honest. In my opinion, this was an operation. There was some sort of like either corporate espionage or intelligence related because of the big money aspect and the high profile aspect. The David versus Goliath element of the case and it's really good looking guy and Ivy League and all that stuff. And this is just purely based on my gut feeling and based on what I know about how the intelligence agencies recruit people and so on and so forth. So that I have to say that first and foremost, because I'm not a legal expert in any way, shape, or form. But the second one's a little more fun. Now, you can decide if you even want to respond to the first part. If this trial was a movie, so the Luigi Mangion story or the Brian Thompson murder story, and you were Luigi's defense attorney, how would
you asking me to play Karen Agnifilo? I humbly accept your offer.
But let's not even assume that this really happened. You could take it either way you want. Either you're playing, it's a biopic type of thing, or the case never happened and this was a Hollywood screenplay. And you are Luigi's defense attorney. How would you spin the David and Goliath narrative in such a way and the means at which you think you might do it to get him off on the crime, to get him acquitted?
I think you lean into it. I think you take the same approach that some attorneys take when they don't have anything else to say. When it is very clear, for example, that your client did something or they killed someone, and there's a justification or an argument that that killing was justified, then I think the answer is that you lean into it. So if there's this concept of the average everyday American who is harmed by the healthcare industry versus United Healthcare and Brian Thompson as the figurehead of United Healthcare, I think the answer to your question is that if that is your strategy, it's go big or go home. You don't dip your toe into that pond. You have to lean all the way into it, and you have to unapologetically just go for it. You don't do a light version of that type of a trial theory. You have to convince the jury that Brian Thompson was a symbol of everything to be hated and despised, and everything that is evil about the American healthcare industry. And you have to draw the jury in, and you have to bring them to feel the same way, to feel the same level of rage and hatred towards the industry, and then give them it's the age-old scapegoat method, right? Like Brian Thompson is the symbol of that. And you have to bring them into that, make them feel it, and then just punch them in the face with it. You have to be unapologetic with it. You think about what's the Matthew McConaughey movie that everybody quotes the closing argument from, where there was the man whose daughter was raped and he killed, oh God.
The John Grisham
Time
one,
to Kill.
right?
A Time to Kill,
Time
right?
to Kill, yeah.
Where there is an understandable human justification for why someone does something that would otherwise be terrible. Like, can we excuse this? Can we justify it? And then even more, like one step further, can we condone it, right? It is an argument for jury nullification. But if you're going to do that, you gotta really go for it. You can't just, you can't tap dance around it. You gotta just
I'm going to share with you where I feel like Karen leaned into this a little early on when Pam Bondi did the whole Luigi Mangione killed an innocent man and father of two. I got myself suspended on TikTok for reading Karen Agnifilo's statement right here. While claiming to
I remember
protect
this.
against murder, the federal government moves to commit premeditated state-sponsored murder of Luigi, defense attorney Karen Anifilo said in the statement. By doing this, they are defending the broken, immoral, and murderous healthcare industry that continues to terrorize the American people. That's fucking leaning into, yeah, he did it, and maybe there's a reason why he did it. It feels a little. Maybe she didn't say, yeah, he did it, but calling the healthcare system
but
murderous.
remember, we talked about that. We even said, I think we used the phrase, was she breadcrumbing? Like, was she giving us a clue as to where the defense strategy was headed? We talked about that. I remember that early on. Yeah.
And I remember you pushed back a little on me because I said, look, what if she's going to put the American healthcare system on trial? And you're like, well, good luck with that. You're not going to. That's an uphill battle.
Well, I think a judge would fight you, right? A judge would fight you,
right? Right, and not to rebeat the dead horse, but I said the only way you do it is extreme emotional defense, because that's the way that you can say, I have to explain to a jury what his frame of mind was when he committed the murder. If he did it, you have to understand why he did it, because the EED defense allows you to tell a jury what was he thinking when he did it, and that's the way you put the healthcare system on trial, right? You'd have to explain what made him so mad that he would do something like that if they go that route.
But you have to be very careful not to go so far as to make it seem like he's just one crazy guy who lost his mind and went psycho one day. Like if this was a statement killing, if this was, put the healthcare industry on trial, Brian Thompson deserved to die because he's the figurehead of the American healthcare system, then you have to be really careful not to paint Luigi as just a crazy person, because those are two separate things. Those are two separate defenses, right? Either he's insane or there's justification, and there's like a really fine line there.
Well, okay, can we talk about that for a minute? Because that's a great thing. For me, the EED defense doesn't mean anything about sanity. It's like, for example, if I catch my spouse in bed with another man, I can kill them both and maybe get some leniency from the jury. Be like, look, you temporarily lost your mind. You literally caught your wife in bed with another guy, so you snap. Right?
Yeah.
It's a crime of passion. It's the same thing with this. Maybe he got, because this is why they have to explain to the jury what was happening in the months leading up to the shooting. Did something happen? Did he watch a loved one die from a broken healthcare system? Did it spin him out of control temporarily? So not an insanity issue, but a temporary break from what you would normally do because you lost your mind for a moment, kind of thing.
Yeah. You just have to be really careful.
The only thing I would say to that, it just pops into my mind, is, didn't they push the narrative that he engraved things on bullets or wrote things on bullet casings and things along
those were one-ones, people.
Premeditation, right?
Right. I mean, that implies a lot of.
Wait, did you start that rumor? Was that you?
Not me.
This is my. I found my conspiracy theory.
Oh my God! That just
wasn't that
happen on the
pushed
show
initially, right? That
they did put it in the news. Yeah.
That was you. I heard it was you. I read that somewhere.
Look, I am the de facto
Donald Trump
conspiracy
tweeted
theorist
that.
here.
Yeah.
One's one of the good NYPD guys. He's not going to go around engraving bullets or saying that that's the crap. That's hilarious. Yeah, that's funny stuff.
Can I throw another question out real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Just real fast. And I know, again, you probably may not be able to answer this question either, but I'm just curious. Do you see, and from any of your experiences or anything you followed, watched, I don't care if it's Idaho, Delphi, whatever it is, you see any parallels within this, in Luigi's case, that you've seen in any fashion, whether it be the legal side of it, the crime itself, anything at all that you've seen in other cases, possibly?
Ooh, I feel like that's such a loaded question. Yes. So a couple things. Okay. I will say unparalleled is the level of public support that I've seen people show him. But in that same vein, when you have a very attractive or sympathetic defendant, people will go out of their way to try to find a reason to like them or to make excuses about why they couldn't possibly be capable of it. So in that regard, yes, but everything about this case is wild. The fact that the state of New York and the Southern District of New York are not you know, agreeing who's going to prosecute this guy, that they're both like, yes, we're both going to do this.
Sure.
The fact that it's a death penalty case. I mean, there's just so much about it that is unprecedented. But I will say the one thing is the level of support that he has, even though it is beyond what, you know, you see in any normal case. The pretty privilege is real. That's a real thing. He has more, I think, sympathy and the potential to really successfully accomplish jury nullification, more so than even, you know, we say that happens a lot with female defendants who are accused of violent crimes, because people can't possibly imagine that they would actually do something like that, because society has this view about, like, you know, women were supposed to be, you know, sweet and maternal and, you know, all of these things. I think people see Luigi and they're like, oh, but he's this rich boy from Maryland, from a good Italian family, and he's got this education, and why would he do something like this? And oh, look how pretty he is, you know, and he has all the support. So that would probably be the one thing, but everything else, no, this case is wild.
Yes.
And it's funny because
Yes.
I'm going to say some inappropriate and uncomfortable things at the moment, but as a heterosexual male, I was like, holy shit, this dude's good looking, and the swagger and shit. And when he was doing the perp walk and doing some shit with his cheek, and he's all like just super confident, and the ladies were
he
swooning
knows
and
it
like,
too.
right? And then I was like, it was like during the recent thing, this hold on. This fucking shot is money. Look at that. Look at that. Like, I swear they posed this shot. Like, did they pose for like,
that's
his
Baywatch shot. David.
Oh my God.
The dude is money. As far as if you're looking for the pretty privilege, right? If you're
Dude, the CIA has a great casting department.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks like he's on a TV, a daytime drama show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, nobody, like, I just can't get over how somebody can maintain that level of grooming from Brooklyn Metro, because I got to tell you, got like a lot of clients that have been detained without bond for a while, and they start looking, even attractive people start looking a little rough. I mean, you don't have, that guy's got
Brian Koberger kept himself pretty well kept while he was being brought back.
Well, he had a nice tan at the end, right? He had a nice tan at the end. Yeah,
that's wild.
Weirdly,
I don't know.
Very weirdly, yes.
Luigi's oiling his curls with Diddy's baby oil or something. I don't know.
And there was all these rumors. Speaking of that, I don't know if we want to side tangent on this, but like earlier there was all this talk about how the inmates are treating Luigi good, and they gave him a low cut fade, and they treat you like they're giving him all this respect in prison, and all the inmates love him, and it may be true. I mean, there was articles saying they call him the ambassador behind doors because he's the guy that greets everybody and shows them the ropes. Oh yeah, you got some comments.
He's also the smart guy, right? He's an Ivy League graduate. And when you are the smart guy in jail, you're everybody's lawyer, you're everybody's accountant, you're everybody's therapist, you're everybody's doctor, right? And you know, that's naturally going to happen. So I don't doubt that he's actually getting, he's making a lot of friends in there in a way much better than the way people usually make friends behind bars.
Wonder if him and Diddy got close while they were there, you know?
He's not his type. He's not his type.
Good point. Yes.
Before I forget, Allie, Joe and I are going to be at CrimeCon in Vegas in May. Did you decide if you're going or not? You were talking about maybe going.
Yeah, I think I might. So Vinny Politan from CourtTV had mentioned that a group of us may head out there. So I don't know. We'll see. I'd like to. I think it'd be fun.
Well, the good news is I didn't buy the platinum seats, and I'm sure you're going to have platinum, but I did get gold, so I might be able to be on a drink mixer with you sometime behind the scenes. We'll never know, but I won't share your secret that you come on my show and embarrass you by that. It's all good. But speaking of that, do you talk a lot of I know you're on CourtTV pretty regularly as one of their regular, I forgot what they call you, but what cases are you mostly talking to CourtTV about now? I know you talked Koberger for a while. Are you talking Luigi with them, and what cases are you covering there?
Yeah, we've covered Luigi a couple of times, but the format of it's every Thursday night, and then a lot of Mondays as well. Is we will do whatever trial is going on that they've been airing that week. So we're talking about, did you guys see the double murder of the dentist and his wife in Ohio, where there were no signs of forced entry and their 2 children were alive inside? We talked about that tonight. And then the lady who made her husband a little fentanyl sandwich out in Utah.
Yep.
Girl.
That's a wild one.
So you
make me a sandwich woman, a whole new meaning there. But yeah, we talked about her for a little bit. So
the new I saw something today real quick. I don't mean to interrupt, but about the Tepes case. Here, I'm in Ohio too, so
okay.
Where they went to the wrong house or something.
There was a woman who reported that same night at 2:30 in the morning that someone was beating on her door and wouldn't stop. And she called the police. Like they were standing there beating on the door long enough to where it made her call the cops. And it was the same night that they were murdered.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's wild. Yeah, that case I'm going to be covering that here relatively soon too.
I'm curious, Alli, if you, I know I didn't prep you at all for this, so I'm really curious. Did you see anything about the Delphi murders, Richard Allen, and the appeal that was recently filed, 113-page appeal on the wrongful conviction they're saying of Richard Allen in the Delphi case? Have you heard anything about that? Or
I have not.
Okay.
I have not.
We'll set that aside. That's huge. That's a huge one.
Okay.
But
we
yeah,
can get into it. But remember what happened last time we agreed to like follow a case together? We made the guy plead guilty.
I know. Well, here's the good news. He already pled guilty. No, he didn't plead guilty. He got convicted because they used a confession they got. Okay, I'm going to give you some basics real quick.
Okay.
So for 5.5 years, and one of the lead suspects in the case was a guy named Ron Logan. 2 young girls were found on his property that had that throat slit and stuff like that. A guy had been seen on the bridge where the girls disappeared, and his name was Richard Allen. And he was, well, they said that the guy at the bridge was Richard Allen. That's a whole nother ball of wax. But anyways, he admitted to being out there that day. And he was dismissed by police, and 5.5 years go by with pictures all over town that he works in, a very small town in Delphi, with the picture of the bridge guy. And he would sit in front of those posters at places, and nobody identified him as the bridge guy for 5.5 years. The lead suspect, Ron Logan, for in a lot of ways, went to prison for some unrelated things and died of COVID while in prison. And 9 months later, they shifted the investigation back to the guy of Richard Allen, who was cleared early in the investigation. And the long of the story is the defense is now saying they put a guy who had a history of mental illness. What was it? Major depressive disorder. He had major depressive disorder, and it was diagnosed. He had that disorder. They constantly interrogated him and told him, "You killed these poor little girls." Blah blah blah. And he insisted, "Oh, I never did nothing. I didn't do nothing. Like, you leave me alone." They battered him, and they stuck him in solitary confinement at one of their worst prison systems, and for 13 months with no access to anybody. And they said their own policies said you can't keep somebody with major depressive disorder in solitary confinement more than 30 days. They kept him there for 13 months. After a while, they broke him. He was eating his own poop. He was drinking out of toilet water. He was talking to imaginary things. He had a complete mental breakdown. And during many of those moments of talking and saying he's God and all these crazy things, he said, "I killed those girls. I mean, I guess I killed those girls." And they used that as a confession, played it for the jury. I killed those girls, convicted him to 130 years. And now his attorneys are raising holy hell, saying what they did to him in prison is just horrific, and we need to relook at this case. So it's pretty exciting to kind of see, like, how's that going to play out, because he's always really maintained his innocence until they kind of literally broke him and made him say, things to his wife. Like, there was a moment, I'll just try to be brief because it's not what we think, where he told his wife, "At any time, if this becomes too much for you and you can't handle all the pressure of this whole case, just tell me and tell my lawyers. I'll tell them anything you want me to say. So if you can't handle it, I'll tell them anything they want to say." So eventually he confesses because she's breaking and she can't handle the stress. And he's like, "Yep, I guess I did it. Fuck it." And they convicted him. But now we're looking at it, and so it's a crazy case.
Oh, yeah. No, we'll have to chat offline about that one. That's interesting. There's a little civil rights component to that one too, and that I love that stuff. So
big time. And I'm going to be going out boots on the ground at Delphi and in Letcher County for the shooting of the sheriff, Mickey Steins, that allegedly shot the sheriff. Well, allegedly is not. He did shoot the sheriff. You can see him on camera. And there's no question he was the shooter. But the question is why. That's a crazy case as well. I want to end because I know you're going to probably want to get going pretty soon. Can we talk a little bit of Idaho for a little bit?
Yeah, let's do it.
A lot of people that case is done, right? Because Brian Koberger pled guilty. But again, it's now coming out that it feels like Koberger was ramrodded into a confession. He was facing an unfair trial. He had no chance of winning, and he accepted a plea deal rather than be executed. And a lot of people just can't accept that. A lot of people have this mentality: you don't plead guilty to something you didn't do. Same thing they're saying about Richard Allen.
It happens all the time.
So he had to do it. So maybe you can tell me in your mind from what you know about the case, and I know that there was a lot of questions about the Kohberger trial. You yourself said, man, something doesn't seem right about this case. Is there any possibility in your mind on a realistic scale that Brian Kohberger pled guilty for reasons other than he actually did it? And how do you feel about the possibility that new exculpatory evidence is starting to come out through public records release and stuff like that?
I will say that people plead guilty to things that they are not guilty of all the time for a number of reasons. Sometimes they do it to get out of being put to death or the possibility of being put to death. Sometimes they do it to get out of pretrial detention because they've been sitting there waiting for a trial and they don't want to wait any longer. So it's not crazy to say that someone would plead guilty to something that they didn't do, just like people confess to crimes they don't commit. I mean, sorry, 1-1, but what the read technique, I mean, police are trained to get information from people, right? So that sort of stuff does happen. Now, if there's new evidence that comes forward, exculpatory evidence that would have potentially made a difference, that's something that Brian Kohberger could potentially use to his benefit. I mean, it would have to be something significant. Obviously, it can't just be speculation. It can't just be somebody saying something. I mean, it would really have to be something significant. But that sort of stuff does happen, and that's entirely possible in this case. That's the one thing that can potentially save him at this point, really.
And I realize that you haven't heard this, so you can't really speak to it too much, but I'm going to tell you the gist of what we think is one of the biggest exculpatory, if a jury had heard it. If a jury had heard it, this would make a difference. Again.
By the way, real quickly, before you go there, the WSU lawsuit documents have dropped.
Oh, for the details of what they're suing the WSU over?
Families?
Okay. Yeah, we have them all. They're all out there already, every one of them. Okay. So yeah, just so you know.
So the gist of it basically is, the prosecution, of course, states that the murders happened between 4:07. That's the last moment you see the headlights moving against a building. So he's obviously still in his car, though, whoever they think that is. And then 4:17 when the dog barks and the person's leaving the house. And then they speed off at 4:20. So the murders had to have happened in that window. The same camera that we hear during that time frame has virtually no sounds whatsoever. You hear what they say is a thud and maybe a dog bark as evidence that's the killings happening, even though we know that 4 victims or at least 3 of the victims were fighting for their lives. They had defensive wounds. There probably would have been screaming, but all you hear is at best a thud. Now comes the released thing that may have been an accident from 2:30 to 3:30, in which you hear muffled sounds of a party going on all the time. And all of a sudden, just clear as day, a horrific female scream, just and you hear this for the course of like 30 minutes screaming next door. And that's never been out to the public. And now it is, and they're acting like it's no big deal. And I'm thinking to myself, any jury who heard that, if you combine that with the grand jury didn't believe Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk when they gave their whole whether they're sleeping or not sleeping, how did they not know what was going on for 8 hours? You didn't call 911. Even the grand jury had problems with the girl's testimony. Again, on the down low, because you're not supposed to know what grand juries said, but apparently James Patterson got a hold of it. But the point being is that if a jury had heard all the screaming taking place between 2:30 and 3:30, and the lack of anything like that during the actual kill window that they said it happened, here's the problem. They themselves, the prosecution, said Brian Kohberger was in Pullman, Washington when those screams were happening. They even said he's still at his apartment. They tell you when he leaves his apartment and when they see him leaving. So if those screams sound like people getting murdered at a time Brian Kohberger could not have been there, that sounds like pretty exculpatory evidence. He literally could not have been there if they even admit he was in Pullman at the time. He hadn't even left yet. So how can it be him killing those people?
Yeah.
Do you have your thoughts about that? Or?
Well, it'll be really interesting when they go back and re-interview witnesses, though, because I mean, I think it's pretty clear, and I obviously I didn't follow it as closely as all of you did, but people in that house are lying. Okay, like they're lying. There's things that don't make sense. There's timelines that don't make sense. There's things that are just not believable. And so, the question is, if they were presented with that video or new information related to that video, would they change their testimony? Would someone come forward with additional information to corroborate what that video appears to show? All of that will be, I mean, 1-1, what do you think? I mean, don't you think that if that was the case, that law enforcement would have an obligation to go back into to re-interview witnesses, and if they didn't, or if they refused to, the defense could certainly retain the services of their own investigator to go and re-interview people. I don't know if they'd be willing to talk to a defense investigator, but
Right, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, one has stated a lot of times. I mean, on the shows we talk about, like, he will read the police reports and he'll be like, "Where the hell's the follow-on questions here? Like, how do they answer some basic questions and no officer said, well, wait a minute, what about this, or where's the follow-on questions?" It's like they just accepted the most basic of answers on things with no follow-on questions, no nothing. And even one was like, "Where the hell's the follow-on questions on this?"
Well, sometimes you ask one too many questions. If you already know what you want your conclusion to be, you don't want to ask too many questions because you might ask the wrong one and then your conclusion gets derailed. So
this is what I say. I say this all the time, Alli. You don't ask questions you already know the answer to. So if they know what they think happened, then they don't ask questions that are going to lead to doubt on what they believe happened. So you don't ask questions that you know what happened.
I mean, look at are you guys all familiar with the Adnan Syed case out of Baltimore from 1999 in Maryland? I mean, look at the way law enforcement handled that. I mean, they zeroed in on him immediately, and his best friend Jay, who's probably the one that actually killed that young woman. They just consistently kept ignoring there were blaring flashing lights, and they were just like, no, no, no. And I mean, and their confirmation bias was just wild in that case. So yeah, it happens.
That case was insane. It happens a lot. It happens too often. And that's one of the things I think about, that I have a problem with, the systemic problem in our country. We believe in the presumption of innocence, we say, and yet we have wrongful convictions way too often for a country that believes in the presumption of innocence. By the way, we've talked a lot. Have you had a chance to look at John Grishman's book, Framed, that came out not too long ago? Holy shit. Let me tell you, that book, he co-authored it with someone else, a guy that was part of one of these kind of like the Innocence Project, but a different name. I forgot what the ministry was, but they've exonerated 70 people from wrongful convictions. And so John Grisham came out with this book, and the first case alone, just to give you a brief thing, the guy, they had a guy who committed a murder, and he'd been known to be a kind of a guy that do this kind of thing. They ignored him because one person who was a friend of his at the scene said, "Well, I think that guy next door was obsessed with that guy's wife, and he's probably the one that killed her." And they went all hands on deck on him. And here's where it got crazy. They had such a hard on to convict this guy of something that he didn't do, that when they put him away in jail and then later found that the DNA didn't match him, they said, "Oh, well, we still believe he's the guy, but he must have had an accomplice." So then they went and arrested another guy, and they put him in jail. And then the DNA didn't match him. And they said, I kid you not, they said, "Oh, well, then the two of them did it, but they had to have another guy." They put 7 people in jail by following that same logic. Well, if their DNA is not there, it must have been with another guy. And they kept building this whole narrative. A bunch of guys raped this girl together. And then eventually the cop that did all this, he goes to jail for it. But how many people's lives? They spent like 12 years in jail for crimes they didn't commit because they decided from the beginning they were going after a guy that didn't do it. And they were just going to keep stuck on that thing. They were stuck on it.
And the guy that actually did it, he eventually confessed in prison, and the one of the lead investigators in the case knew this information, and they were like, they wouldn't accept his confession, because it would have made him look bad. So they tried to this guy was adamant. He's like, "No, Then they tried to pin it on him and the other guys that he already arrested.
Yeah, right. We're going to stay with the 7 guys we got. But
and he just insisted, "No, I did it alone." But they wouldn't accept that he just did it alone. It took years.
And what's also crazy is that that neighbor that was, that they interviewed early on actually gave the real perp's name right up front. So the neighbor said, so the guy that was framed, she gave his info, like, "Oh, this guy, it might be him. He's a little weird." But she also gave the actual perp. She gave that info too. But they got so much tunnel vision, they completely ignored.
So, it's I don't know how much time you have to spend on, but I've read 3 of the 5 cases that are in that book, and all of them shock me to my core. It probably wouldn't shock you so much because in criminal defense, you probably have seen it all by now. But me reading that book was like, how the fuck do we believe in the presumption of innocence? And this stuff happens enough that it's like, it's not even uncommon. Like 70 people have been exonerated for things they didn't do. And that's in one group. That's not even the Innocence Project. It was like a different group.
And I think it's going to start getting worse too, because you got, everybody loves to blame the cops and everybody loves to blame prosecutors. But, the more and more we have average citizens not just coming home from work and reading a newspaper anymore, but getting on social media and 24/7 being inundated with this stuff. There is a public thirst and a hunger for arrest someone, resolve the case, get someone. And that pressure gets put on police and prosecutors to quickly resolve a case because the public just won't let things go. And a lot of that is good, right? Like it keeps people accountable. It gets justice for victims. But the flip side of that is that there is a lot of pressure, and sometimes with that pressure there's not as much care to do things slower the right way. So that's my little plug. There you go, one month, my little plug for cops.
I very, very
they're not always bad.
They're not always bad. That's for sure. We got a good one on our show. So I do want to give this quick thing. We've been riffing so much with Alli as a panel that I have not been paying attention to the chat. What I want to do is, in your mind, clear the chat. I haven't seen anything that's going on in the chat. Last opportunity for our audience. If you have a question that you want to ask a criminal defense attorney who's sitting on thing, and if you can articulate yourself well in a good question, please ask a question of Alli. We'll pin it up on here and we'll see if she can take a crack at answering some of your legal questions. It may be best to leave it non-case specific, just so that she can talk in generalities, unless it's a case that she's well versed on. But I'm going to look to see if we have any comments in the chat that anybody wants to ask Alli specifically, so you have an opportunity. In fact, we could potentially bring you up on should we? I mean, there's 6 of us already here. Do we want to bring another person on stage? I don't know, but please fire a comment into the chat if you've got something that you want to ask. Otherwise, panelists, is there any last thoughts that you want to ask Alli about, just in general, about law, about criminal defense, any of that kind of stuff at all?
Can I ask a controversial question? I don't want.
That's my favorite kind of question.
I don't want to cause trouble, DA.
Yeah, you started us off with that bullshit shooting the other day from ICE. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask Alli, what has she seen the videos on that ICE shooting? And just you're a defense attorney, and I would just like to know your legal opinion on that.
Woo. I've seen the video. Obviously I've seen the clips that are out there. I have not seen any clips of much that happened beforehand, but I did see the officer get out of his vehicle. I saw him approach the woman's car. I believe that I saw a gun being drawn as the wheels were turning away. She was shot from the side. There comes a point in time where police officers cannot create the danger that they then turn around and say that they exercised force to avoid.
Yes.
And I do a lot of civil rights work as well. I've seen some horrific things, and I don't believe that was from the little bit that I've seen. And again, there's always more to the story. There's always more context. But from what I've seen thus far, I do not believe that shooting was justified. She may have been, driving away. Let her drive away. We've got to stop shooting people because of our egos and because we don't want them to get away. I don't know what happened before. I don't know that necessarily mattered. The woman got shot in her head in the middle of a suburban street. That's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, we went over it yesterday, and I also obviously I have my law enforcement background and my experience with it. I also I don't know why they were stopping her, or I need a little more context. But from the clip that I saw, the few clips, I also agree that I think it's a bad shooting.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah, and
she was going away.
Right.
And you know, I've heard a
Right.
lot of people
Yeah.
talk about the fact that this guy was traumatized by being dragged by a car sometime a while back. Well, you know, that's horrible. I hate that that happened to him. I don't want to say, you know, like that's a risk of the job. I mean, I know, you know,
He shouldn't be on
thank
duty.
you that you all put yourselves in danger to keep all of us safe every single day. I am very thankful. I don't think
Yeah.
that all police are bad. And I know that most police officers and should condemn bad police conduct. But if he was that traumatized to where his judgment was impaired and he could
Exactly.
no longer responsibly carry out his duties, he needs to go
He
find
shouldn't be
another
carrying
job.
he
He
shouldn't be
needs
carrying
to
a
be in
service
the
weapon.
evidence room. He needs to be at a
Right.
desk. He doesn't need to
Absolutely.
be out with a
Absolutely.
gun and shooting some child's mother in the middle of a suburban neighborhood in the middle
Right.
of the day. That's what I have to say about that.
Yeah.
Not to take away from his what sounds like it was a terribly traumatic experience, but you know, we also have to be responsible, and shame on his supervisors for putting him in that position if he was in fact still not recovered from what happened to him. But
Yeah.
That's a great
Absolutely.
answer. Now,
Yeah.
Great.
And you know, he
His-
fled the
yeah, his
scene
judgment.
afterwards. Like
His
he
judgment
bolted.
his judgment is compromised.
yeah.
Well, so real
He's
quick,
not-
I do have
now
some
there's a
questions. I do have some
6-year-old child
questions from the
without-
audience I want to pin, and I think there's legitimate questions. Here's a generic. Why does the system push for plea deals versus truth? You want to riff on that at all?
Yeah, politics. So in most jurisdictions, the lead district attorney or prosecutor, solicitor, whatever you call them in your jurisdiction, are elected officials, and they are elected to move cases and to move dockets. Not in my state, but judges are often elected, same thing. And so plea deals are quicker, they're cheaper, and they move cases. And, you know, the other side of that is people who are required to come to court time and time and time again have to take off work to do that. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck and if you don't go to work, you don't get paid, you're going to plead your case out faster because you don't want to have to keep taking off work going to court. You can't necessarily take off a week or 2 weeks to go to trial in a case where, you know, maybe you get guaranteed probation or a guaranteed fine as opposed to risking jail time. There are a number of reasons for that, but I would say that it's efficiency and it's financial. That's my short answer to that question.
This question may or may not be serious, but I'm going to turn it into a serious question. It says, Allie question, should I turn myself in or will hiding make the punishment worse?
It depends. What'd you do? Let's talk about it. Attorney-client privilege. Let's go sidebar. No, I'm kidding.
Well, the reason I was going to turn it into a serious is, let's say, for example, I don't know that this is what their comment is, but let's say that you may not have done something, but you think they're going to pin you on something. Is it worse for you to try to avoid getting arrested because you didn't do it, or turn yourself in and let the system play itself out, kind of thing? Like, is it ever really a bad thing for you if you know they're coming for you to try to avoid getting arrested, if you could do so legally, like just go on vacation and not be around for them to arrest you?
First of all, you can't turn yourself in if there's no warrant for you. I mean, you can go to the police desk and say, like, I killed somebody, and they'll be like, wait right there, we've got some paperwork to do, right? But if you know that there is a warrant out for your arrest, I think you should, you know, get a lawyer to help you with the turn in if that will make you feel better. I mean, I get calls from people all the time who they have not yet been arrested. They know that the police are looking for them, and I will reach out to the investigator and I will coordinate a convenient time for that person to self-surrender. It makes everything smoother. It's actually safer for the police as well as safer for the client to do that on our own terms. Maybe we take them to headquarters and get them turned in. And then that way they're not tempted to give statements, and law enforcement is less inclined to try to interrogate them if they're accompanied by a lawyer. So I would say it depends on the circumstances, but I represent people pre-arrest all the time.
By the way, before I pin this next question, I want to say I heard a lawyer say something I disagreed with. Nobody lawyers up unless they're guilty. And I thought that's ridiculous. Because if a cop
do you watch
even said
TV, do you watch the news? That's
right. I couldn't believe that actually came from a lawyer's mouth, because I'm thinking to myself, if a cop ever starts to make it look like they're investigating me because they think I'm going to be immediately, I need a lawyer. And it's not because I'm guilty. It's because I'm not dumb. Like, I'm not going to talk and have this conversation if I know you're fishing for something to, whether I did it or not. Like, I would be like, I'm not having that conversation. So I don't understand if only guilty people ask for a lawyer. It shouldn't be a sign of guilt.
That lawyer who said that must draft wills for a living. That's what I have to say about that.
Yeah. What I tell people all the time is don't answer questions to the police. Just say you want a lawyer, because everything now, pretty much everywhere, everything's on body camera or there's video at the precinct. Just keep saying, I'm not answering questions.
Yeah. Then you're on camera saying you want your constitutional rights to a lawyer. Yeah. And you can't. Yeah. All right. This question, Judge Caro in the Luigi Mangion case, is he waiting until May to make a decision on the suppression hearings? And by extension, I'll ask, why would he wait any longer? Like, why not rule on it now? What's the delay here, and what do you think's happening there?
Well, there's some additional briefing that got requested, right?
I think so.
If I'm not mistaken. So that's part of it. I don't know what Judge Caro's docket looks like, but I would imagine that that's a shit ton of information that he's got to go through. He's going to want to meet with his clerk or clerks, going to want to go through notes from the hearings, and going to want to re-review all of the written submissions. I think there was an extended briefing deadline. I think it's a reasonable time frame. I don't think that that's outrageous at all. I think that's pretty normal docket management.
Do you know this case, Renair?
Yeah, what do you think about? Yeah, the Reiner case. I think Alan Jackson found out that there was not a pot of money that he thought that there was. That's what I think. There's three reasons why. Okay, there's three reasons why a lawyer would withdraw. His client ran out or does not have money, which to that I would say rookie move, not getting your money up front. There's a conflict that has arisen that you were not aware of at the beginning, or maybe your client has asked you to do something or say something that would be dishonest or unethical, and it makes it such that you can't continue to represent him. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure those are the three that come to mind. I'm sure there's more, but I hope that it was a conflict and not that Alan Jackson didn't get paid. But the fact that he said that the public defender was stepping in was really interesting to me, which tells me that Reiner is indigent. I think that there's a statute maybe that would prevent him from being able to inherit from his parents or be the beneficiary of their life insurance policy if he is suspected of having anything to do with their death. So maybe that also played into the financial aspect. I don't know. Now I'm sounding like a conspiracy theorist, but I think it's one of those three reasons.
That's awesome. You are a bit of a conspiracy theorist at heart. I know you can take the girl out of the conspiracy theorist, but you can't take the conspiracy theorist out of the girl. So I'm going to get the next pinned comment, but what do you think of Derek Chauvin and his appeal in the George Floyd case? Do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, have not read the appeal. Have not read it. So I don't want to comment on it. So I don't know whether it has.
Chauvin was the officer, right? Chauvin was the officer accused of killing Floyd. Yeah,
George Floyd. Yeah.
Here's a good one. I'm in South Carolina. I'm curious what your view on the Murdaugh appeal is.
Okay, gotta be very careful. Got to be very careful with this one because I was involved in the Murdaugh case. And it was public. People know about it. But I represent two witnesses. One of them was Alec's best friend, and the other was the corporate entity that he impersonated, which is Forge Consulting. So want to be careful on that. What do I think about it? I think that the jury misconduct was significant. I think that the clerk of court, Becky Hill's behavior was disgusting, unacceptable. I think that Alec Murdaugh should get a new trial, if for no other reason than to make sure that we are convicting somebody and doing something the right way versus the easy way and the cheap way. I think that enough damage to the system can be done in this particular situation. If we allow that to stand and we say that behavior is okay, we are sending a bad message and we are making dangerous precedent. There are a million other things that Alec Murdaugh is very clearly guilty of, and he's probably going to spend the rest of his life in prison. So I think it is more important on a 50,000 foot view level to make sure that we are maintaining the integrity of the jury system in this state and in all states across the country. And so I think for that reason, I think he should get a new trial, but I have serious doubts about whether that's actually going to happen or not.
Great. Yeah. And I knew that you had a little bit of a kind of a sort of conflict to be able to talk about the case. And I wanted to jump into it with you as well. But I wasn't super versed on it.
I know them well. I know the family. I know Alec. I knew Maggie. I knew Paul. I knew Buster.
Which makes it hard for you to talk about it, right? Because you're too close.
It feels surreal. It's wild.
This one, I'm not sure. I'm going to put it up because maybe you guys understand it more than I do. I feel like it's close to a question I know, but as a defense attorney, how do you are able to defend the instigating? That's the part I don't understand, the instigating part.
The instigating.
At first I was thinking they're kind of asking, how do you defend somebody who's guilty, but that's not what they're saying. So what is that?
Yeah.
So yeah, like that. I thought that's where they're going with it, but I don't know if that's where they're going with it. So I don't know if you will.
Maybe the ICE case.
If you want to the ICE
Maybe
case.
they're referring to the ICE shooting.
Oh, instigating by. I don't know. Like, so again, I feel like we have to then guess what the person is trying to say. I want to give them a chance to reframe their question. If you can articulate it a little bit better so we understand what it is, we can maybe get a shot for that. I'm just looking here for a couple more questions.
Case heard a case where people were prosecuted and convicted for conspiracy to inhibit rights of another. I don't even know what that is.
Have you worked a case or heard of a case where people were prosecuted and convicted for conspiracy to inhibit the rights of another? I don't know what that means either.
That means.
Looking for a couple more questions. This question's come up a bunch, but I think we already answered it about why Carl's waiting until May to make a decision on the suppression hearings.
He probably needs some time to write too. I would imagine that his order will probably be written. He's gonna, the whole world's gonna be reading it. It's his moment, his big magnum opus.
So let's briefly. Robin, go ahead and you can look for another couple more questions if you want. But I'll finish by thinking about the cases that I follow and asking Alli a general question about them. Long Island serial killer case.
Mm-hmm.
I've spoken to attorney John Ray, who represents the family of Shannon Gilbert, who went missing and found dead in 2010. He has been approved. He's been long trying to file a lawsuit against Dr. Peter Hackett, who claimed that night that she went missing, that she came to his house and that he brought her in and he treated her medically and sent her on her way. And even called Mary Gilbert, Shannon Gilbert's mother, a couple times and said, hey, I treated her that night, and I don't know anything about it. But then later when law enforcement started looking into it, he said, that never happened. I never saw her that night. And John Ray has been trying to kind of go after Peter Hackett, not for saying he had anything to do with the death of her, but maybe in impeding the investigation, that his lies and his involvement that impeded the investigation. And he's been approved to go after Peter Hackett, just recently approved to continue that lawsuit that started like way back 2012 or something like that. And he's been approved now to go after it. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts about this peripheral case to the Long Island serial killer about trying to go after somebody impeding an investigation. Have you ever had a situation like that? It's kind of a strange way to go, but it's interesting in a way. But
yeah, not after the fact like that, though. I mean, I've definitely represented people who have been tangentially related to, the bigger crime, and whether it's in a conspiracy or as an accessory before or after, but not that long after the fact like that. No.
If BK's appeal is approved, do you think the judge and the prosecution should be held accountable for their actions?
Well, I'm not quite sure what we're asking here, but if you're asking me if like the judge or the prosecutor are going to be prosecuted themselves, then no. I mean, judges and prosecutors make mistakes. There are disagreements about the interpretation of the law or certain rulings that a judge makes, and as long as somebody is not acting maliciously, there's no consequence to be had for that. I mean, unless they're committing misconduct. That's a different issue. But being wrong is not misconduct.
And I'm going to pin a comment here in a minute, Robin. I want to clarify. Brian Koberger has not filed an appeal. So the first part of the statement says if he wins his appeal or something like that, he didn't file an appeal. So there's no appeal pending. There are people on his behalf who are trying to show that the investigation was not handled properly, but Brian himself has not initiated through an attorney at all an appeal. And in fact, the appeals window has closed on him.
It would take something like
exculpatory.
Petition.
A habeas thing. Or,
habeas corpus would be the only other option at this point, I believe.
If your client is confessing to you that he or she did the crime, then how hard do you still defend your client or criminal?
Zealously, as is my ethical duty. And here's the thing that people miss a lot. I'm not defending conduct. when I have a murder case, I have lots of murder cases. I'm not standing up in front of a jury and saying, murder isn't bad, murder is great. What I'm doing is I am holding the system accountable. I am protecting my client's constitutional rights. I am requiring people like 1 who arrested my client and deprived him of his liberty to show that they have done that in a way that is justified. I am making sure that I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And here's the thing about our system. If the police act appropriately within the confines of the Constitution, and the prosecutor acts ethically and meets its burden of proof, then the right outcome will happen. But when we allow prosecutors and law enforcement to cut corners, to disregard the Constitution, that is a slow erosion of our rights. And we might not see it in the moment when it's happening, but the more and more we allow it to happen, the easier it becomes for it to be overlooked. And then that's where we find ourselves in a situation where we have no rights at all. And so the answer to the question is that I defend all of my clients zealously, regardless of what they tell me they did. Sometimes I don't ask because I don't want to know, because it doesn't matter. It's not the question of whether I'm defending their conduct. It's a question of holding the other side accountable, forcing them to meet their burden. The Constitution says it's their burden, not mine. I am making sure that they are doing their job. If they do their job and my client's convicted, then our system says that is the right outcome. But if they cut corners just to get a win, that's an injustice. And that's what I'm trying to prevent from happening.
I got another question, and I'm going to add a part to it. What does she think about taking plea deals off the table for cases like Idaho 4 to force the state and law enforcement to their burden of proof and when enforcing the death penalty? And I guess the broader question I'll ask you is, do you see any judicial reforms that we can make it so that it's not so likely that 90-something% of all cases end in a plea deal instead of going to trial?
That's a tough question to answer in a few minutes. I will say that I think if judges would be braver and prosecutors would be braver in feeling okay with dismissing crappy cases, like if law enforcement, sorry, occasionally it does happen, law enforcement, they make bad cases, right? Get rid of the bad cases, focus on the ones that have been made properly, and that way your docket will get cleaned up. Empower prosecutors to have agency, to be able to make decisions without fear of political blowback. I mean, a lot of these are like some lofty ideas, right? But to answer the question, I mean, and you're never going to get rid of there being more pleas than there are trials. There just isn't enough time. I mean, the average, it's different state to state. We don't have typically here multi-week cases, but if the average trial is a week long, I mean, you don't have a term of court every single week. You don't have multiple judges every week. Let's say you have 52 trials a year. There's probably 52,000 people in my tiny state that are arrested every year. The math ain't mathin', as the kids say. There's just no way to do that. People are going to commit more crimes than we do have time to try those cases, and so there's no fix for that. But some things that can remedy it would be, again, law enforcement making stronger, better cases that will then allow prosecutors to prosecute and focus on the cases that are made better, and empower everybody in that chain from law enforcement on down, to get rid of the junk, because we have so much junk on our dockets. And stop arresting people for mental health and drugs. How about that?
Yeah. There. So I'm going to ask a more kind of a philosophical question. Is, as a defense attorney, and I don't know that you would, I'm afraid you're going to say, I would never couch it this way. Do you consider it a win if you get a plea deal for your client? So they're facing a really heavy charge and you get them to reduce it, and he pleads or she pleads to a lesser charge. Do you consider that a win because you got them off on the bigger charge, or do you consider it a loss because the ultimate thing would be like they didn't do it at all? I mean, like, do you consider it a win to just get a plea?
It depends on the case. So I would never, and I have never advised a client who tells me that they did not do something to plead guilty. And a judge, if they're doing their job, should never take a plea from someone who does not admit guilt. But, if somebody comes to me and they say, I did this and I believe they've been overcharged, and I can get that case pled to where instead of going in front of a jury and taking the risk of facing 30 years, I know that they can get a guaranteed 2 years of probation and maybe the possibility of having their record expunged down the line. I mean, I'm not a gambler, but like, I'll take that. I mean, why not? I mean, it's ultimately the client's decision, but the answer is a lot of times a plea is a win. There's an inherent risk in going to trial. I don't care if you have Mother Teresa as your client. If the jury decides they don't like you, it really doesn't matter what the facts are. It doesn't matter what the law says, because juries are emotional groups of people who make decisions, and your fate is in their hands. There's an inherent level of risk there. So yes, a plea can 100% be a win.
Or you could get a judge like Hitler that doesn't allow
Yeah,
anything.
no talk about alternative suspects allowed here. No talk about
Well, Plea, you and I have talked about that. Lots of
Yeah.
states. I mean, there's laws against the admission of third-party guilt, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I had a question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Opinion.
Sorry, guys. Allie, it came up earlier, and we've talked about it on this show numerous times. I learned about the Reed technique in college because I went to school for psychology, and it's almost like a psychological operation being carried out on the suspect. And particularly if you have somebody that's vulnerable and might have some sort of mental disability or emotional disability. What is your take on the Reed technique?
It's diabolical. I don't like it. I don't like when cops do it. I mean, look at what happened to I feel like I keep giving examples of famous cases, but what's his name? Stephen Avery from Wisconsin. His mentally I don't know if I would say, I don't think this is a politically correct word, but I think he was slow, his nephew, right? Brandon.
Yes.
I think that's predatory, that's short-sighted, that's a perfect example of cutting a corner because you want to get to a win. Hopefully police are trained to recognize intellectual disabilities or mental incapacity such that they would not take advantage of someone in that way. I'm sure that still happens, but to answer your question, I don't like it. I think the goal of the Reed technique is to get to an end without looking for the truth necessarily. And sometimes those two are the same things. Sometimes employing the Reed technique can get someone to tell the truth, but more often than not, the goal is to get somebody to talk with little regard for whether what you ultimately get from them is the truth or not. It's I have an answer or I have information, and I have a problem with that. But hopefully, I hope that law enforcement uses it as responsibly as possible, but I do think that it's crap.
Yeah, I cringe watching a lot of interrogations where they tell the defendant, look, everybody has already told us you did it. We have irrefutable proofs. Your brothers turned you in. Your sister turned you in. Everyone says you did it. They lie. They flat out are allowed to lie.
Perfectly legal for the police to lie to you.
I hate
but
that.
In
I
most
hate it
states, and with the feds, if you lie to them, you go to jail. Just ask Martha Stewart.
Oh my gosh. Last question, I think, because we could be here all night and I want to let you go. And I want to, do you think the John Benet Ramsey case is ever going to be solved? It's a random top of the question. I was like, oh yeah.
Wait, I thought Katy Perry was John Benet Ramsey.
I know. I did hear that.
Well, Lee, you got Othram Labs is on it now.
Othram Labs has already kind of hinted that they're going to help break that case after all this time. So that's a whole other shit storm. But
I think I will say yes. I think we'll get some information in our lifetime about what happened to that little girl.
Fantastic.
DNA.
Any panelists want to last before I'm going to give Allie the last word before she signs out? Does any panelist have a last question? Anyone last question for Allie? All right. So Allie, do you have any final thoughts for us? Any cases that you think we should all be watching because it's a great case that you're putting eyes on now? Anything you want to say about cases we're following? Any predictions on Luigi Mangion? Any thoughts in general that you think you want to share with our audience?
I think Luigi's going to continue to be a wild ride. I'm looking forward to it. I do still think it's a trial. other cases to follow? No, nothing's really piquing my interest right now. But I appreciate you guys taking time, and this was fun. Thank you for having me. I'm very glad, especially that we were able to really figure out who it was. 1-1, delay, deny,
Yeah,
depose.
he
We'll
carved those
see you.
bullets. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Easily. I remember. I got your DNA.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot. I went shooting at a range with 1-1, and so my fingerprints are all over
Ooh.
guns in New York. So if I ever come up with a crime, I'm going to need a lawyer that in New York to help me out with that shit. Well, thank you, Allie, for coming on and taking time with us. It's a pleasure as always to have you. I would like to keep to maintain. I mean, I know that you're so busy, but I'd like to maintain having you on from time to time to talk to our guests, because they always love you when you're on here, and it's a super treat for us. And so, I think it's
fun. I hate the West Coast time, but it's fine.
It was very
I
nice
can,
and an honor to meet you, and to
thank
hear
you.
you too. Thank you so much again.
Thank you,
all.
Allie.
Appreciate you.
That was great and
Oh, thank you
informative.
all.
Thank you very much.
And Lee's going to keep getting on me. I'm going to get that YouTube page up eventually, but I am on TikTok. If anybody's interested and wants to connect that way, I'd be happy to.
I'm telling you what, Allie, you just say the freaking word. I got a team of people who will put your YouTube channel together for you. So
I know I do. I just need to do it.
We would get your channel up and running. So
it's up.
Robin
it's just
will help you.
It's in bad shape.
It needs some help. Yeah,
it needs some help.
All right, Allie, I'll let you go. I'm going to close out with
it.
the panelists after I take you off screen. So thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you. It's amazing talking to you again, and have a great evening.
You too. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great one.
All right, guys. So thanks for interacting with our lovely criminal defense attorney. It's always cool to have an attorney give their perspective, just like it's cool to have law enforcement give their perspective and EMT to give their perspective. It helps frame those questions in a little bit better way, and it's awesome to have those kind of resources. So we've been blessed on this channel to have that kind of stuff, and I know, Dago, you've had these kind of things on your channel as well. So you've got a group of people that we have great people that help out with these shows, and I think it's a super cool thing for the public to be able to watch these shows. It's a shame not more people are watching these shows. So along that lines, make sure you like and subscribe and follow this channel, because we do cool shit here on a regular basis. And same with Dago's channel as well. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow the True Crime Cafe and all the stuff Dago does and his group. Make sure you're following both of those channels. State of the Deep hasn't got the YouTube channel going yet, but when it gets there, we'll have you follow that channel as well. So, and again, Robin and 1-1 don't have channels to follow, but you can come here to watch them. I'm going to go around the horn. Dago first, JJ, Robin, 1-1, and I'm going to close out. I'm going to tell you one thing. After we're done, I will take about a 15-20 minute break, and then I will go ahead and resume live member-only breakdown of body-worn camera footage for a few hours. So if you guys want to join us, you can. If it's too late, I understand that. It'll be on replay. You'll be able to watch it on replay as well. So, Dago, any last thoughts for tonight?
I just want to thank you again for having me here, especially for tonight. It was a treat to be able to hear some of Allie's thoughts on multiple cases. Absolutely, I didn't expect her to speak on that many, and again, just for having me here in general. I appreciate it, having the community here, and all of the Blue Crew as well. We all appreciate you all so very much, as we say every single night. At some point, I'm gonna have to say something different, I know. And 1-1, Robin, JJ, you guys had great questions tonight too, by the way. Very, very intriguing and deep questions. I enjoyed them all, every one of them. JJ, 1-1, you guys had some great stuff to say, to ask her. And Lee, definitely that last question you asked her before we got rolling was really, really a good one. And I'm looking forward to the possibility of her being here again and being here to talk to her again. I really enjoyed that. So yes, thank you all very much. And I hope everybody in here has an amazing rest of your night if I don't see you. But I have a feeling I'm going to, especially if you're going live again. So
yeah, I will. We got so many hours to go through. I just want to hit it hard, so I'm going to get on it again just after a potty break and a soda and all that good stuff. And so yeah, I probably will see you then on there as well. JJ, what's up? What's your final thought for the night?
As always, it was very interesting and enjoyable, and I was thankful that we got a chance to speak with Allie. And you know, I always thank all of you guys. I appreciate being a part of this. And thank you again to the Den and the Meatballs and the Blue Crew. And I appreciate, I really do appreciate being a part of this group. So once again, I'm happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you. So thank you so much for lending your brains and thoughts on things. And it's great to have you in the show as well. Robin, what's your co-producer thoughts of the evening?
Well, Alli is a class act all the way. So it just a super. I could just sit and listen to her just for hours. She is so articulate and intelligent and funny and just it just a real treat being here with her tonight and hearing her views on a myriad of different cases. It was really cool. She just has excellent insights, and so yeah, looking forward to having her on again, and I will certainly be happy to help her with her channel. That's not a problem at all. So it's but no, she's just amazing, and so looking forward to having her on again, hopefully soon. I know she's busy, but
Yeah. We've been blessed to have her. I mean, one time I kind of said I'd like to be able to call you a friend, and she's like, "You can." And I'm like, "It's kind of cool," because she really does feel like a friend. She's always treated me very, very nice and kind, and so yeah, I'm looking for that. One man, she was kicking your balls tonight. It was kind of funny. I kind of enjoyed the spice that she was giving shit to NYPD.
She's a defense. She's a defense lawyer. So
she was breaking the balls,
breaking my balls here.
She's an East Coast girl for sure.
Yeah. But I share a lot of the same opinions that I really wanted to get her take on the Terry stuff, but it doesn't seem like we're gonna get the outcome really that we wanted.
Yeah.
At least based on her opinion. But thanks everyone for coming. Make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks to Dago once again. Panel is great. All the questions, JJ, Dago, Lee. Thanks for putting the panel together. And you're the boss. Thank you for allowing us to ask questions. It was absolutely amazing. Now I just gotta hold you. Now I gotta hold you about John Ray, because I could ask that guy 1,000 questions too. But no, this was absolutely amazing.
It would be very cool to get John Ray on the panel. Yeah, it would be great.
And just for a little tease, JJ teased it yesterday. We do have a very special show coming on Sunday.
A lot of Kurt Cobain.
The whole show is basically going to be about Kurt Cobain. Talking with Robin, we're not sure exactly yet. We're kind of coming into this thing. We think that instead of trying to just sort of like rush through everything, because obviously, none of us are like Lana. We can't do a 7-hour show, and there's some of these cases.
I'm working up to it. I'm working up to it.
I know.
He's getting there.
Some of these cases just have so much info and so many threads to pull. So we're kind of contemplating the idea that we may, maybe for like a whole month period, maybe like multiple Sundays in a row, we might just cover different threads on a certain case, whether, and we may even put it out there to the, to you guys, to the Den and to the meatballs out there. Like, is there a certain case or a certain thing that you want us to go back over, whether it's, John Benet Ramsey or whatever, we may,
we could do a poll. We're the poll.
We could do a poll. We could do a poll. But,
everyone knows I like a good poll.
All right.
So,
great show. Great show.
I have plenty to offer for Sunday, by the way, you guys, so you don't have to work super, super hard. I have plenty to bring to that table.
Along the lines, as I get ready to close, along the lines of what you said, 1-1, it is kind of, it's in a way frustrating. I love Alli, but in a way it's frustrating when she'll simultaneously admit, that was a bad arrest. And yeah, they shouldn't have a grounds to go for the death penalty. And yeah, the bottom line is, though, they're still going to do it. And it's like, how broken is our system when you're like, yeah, I don't think they're going to take it off the table. It was illegal. It wasn't done right. They shouldn't do it, but they're still going to do it. I'm like, fuck that. What does that say about our system that you still believe they're going to do it when it wasn't
not even
right?
a valid not even a valid arrest, but yet doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter. Yeah.
All right. That's it for us, everybody. Thank you all coming for my panelist. I'm glad that our panel got a chance to interact with Alli, and I got, and it was a special treat. It's sad to me. We've had bigger nights, and it's sad when Alli's on here and we don't have a monster night, because more people need to see Alli. Maybe they're all watching her on CourtTV instead of on my show, but whatever the case may be, you missed out if you weren't here for it live. Hopefully people do watch more of it on the replay. It would be nice when she comes in that it's one of our biggest nights, because it's a treat. You guys saw it. It's a treat when Alli's on here and can answer legal questions. So it's special. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and take a break. I'm going to fire up a members only live as we're going to continue to go through about midnight to maybe 1-2 o'clock in the morning of the night that Brent Kopacka was shot and killed. We're doing minute by minute look of the body-worn camera. We're going to break down everything I hear and see, questioning whether the officers pushed that in, escalated that into a shooting that didn't need to happen, and all those things. We're going to talk about that live. We're going to do it live. Everybody else?
While you're doing it live, you're going to tip a few or no?
I think maybe that sounds good. It's a good time to do that.
Because I've been in pain for 2 days, so I would jump in there. I wouldn't want to be the only one having a drink though.
If you're not, by the way, so here's what I'll do. When I fire up the live, I'll send out the link to the backstage. So you guys, I don't know if you guys are all members or not, but for our panelists, if you don't have a membership for some reason, I'll make sure you have the link to join us backstage so you can get on stage with us.
Sweet.
All right. I'll send out that link in a little bit. Give me about 15-20 minutes, and then we'll fire up the live. Everybody else, have a great night. See you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Everybody.